Hello, hello, welcome everybody. I'm Jev. Yes, Triple V. The accent, by the way, is purely Kiwi. I read old stories for children, so we keep this a family-friendly channel by having bad word blockers, banning bots, and preventing spam. So that means new followers need to wait a few minutes before they can join in the chat. Since these stories are so old, they're now in the public domain, which means they are free to read for anyone and by anyone, the way many Christmas songs are. The digital versions I read are from Project Gutenberg, and you'll find the link for that below. The physical ones are just old books my family has lying around. Sometimes I'll even show them to you. These, by the way, are live reads. Think of them as bedtime stories rather than actual audiobooks. You get the benefits of my mistakes, distractions, explanations, and terrible attempts at accents, along with plenty of chat and interruptions as we find out about things in the story. If you need to do work or chores, then that's fine. Just come and lurk. Please adjust your volume to suit. There are captions available if you have to be quiet or you have hearing challenges, but be warned, sometimes the captions aren't always that accurate. I am a member of the Codex, an awesome group of reading streamers on Twitch. People from many walks of life who share their love of reading, and you'll find links to the Codex reading team and our Discord server below. A special feature of the Codex Discord is the security channel for those of you who stream or moderate. You'll find lots of practical, useful information to help keep your stream and your community safe. So, hang around and come discover adventure with me. You never know what we'll find. Hello everybody. I hope you're doing well. I'm here. I made it. I think. Excuse me. Yeah, so how are you doing? I hope you're well. There was something I was going to say and I can't remember what it was. We don't have all the tool noise today. Yay, that's cool, because we have the chimney in place. Yay! And the reason that's exciting is because we're heading into winter now and the weather is cooling down and it's getting wetter outside as well as windy, and it gets a bit cold in this large house when we don't have something like a fire going in the fireplace when it actually gets to cooler temperatures. So it's really nice to know that we've got that. And also I end up drying all my laundry inside in winter, so it's good to have the fireplace drying the laundry rather than just the air and making the house damp inside. So yay from my end. And it also means I haven't got the extra noise going on. It was only one day at each end of the project, which is really good, but still it's nice to know that part of it's done. So I hope you're doing well. What have you been up to? Have you been doing anything exciting? While you're having a think about that, let's have some tips for how to make the most of our time here so we can enjoy ourselves. Maybe I'll learn something. I don't know. Let's try.
Hello, my name is Raccoon Z. In Z. That's right, 3 C's and 3 O's. Ha. So, welcome to the stream. We have many tips for you to help enjoy the stream. Number 1, have a drink. I like water. As soon as my human helps me out here. So, another part of that is when I hydrate, when I take a drink, you do too. You can indicate that you've done so by giving a thumbs up or use the water bottle emoji down in chat. Number 3, sure, why not? Food or snacks? I don't have any right now, but you eat whatever you'd like to eat. Maybe it's a whole meal, maybe it's a snack, I don't know. You do you. Number 4, get comfy. You can wrap up in something. Thanks, human. That's more like it. Grab a pillow. Maybe you've got a fidget toy you can play with. But do anything you like to be comfy. You could even have, I don't know, maybe your favorite human will give you scritches. Hey, human. That's right. Give me scritches. Yeah, that's right there. Yeah. No, don't touch the floof! Next, we have number 5, something to write with or write on. Hey, I can't reach the pad. There you go. And I need something to write on. I just said something to write. Oh wait, that's something to write on. I need something to write with. Okay. Okay, so I don't have opposable thumbs, but you do. Write memos down. You might need to remember something. Maybe not right now, but maybe after the stream. Number 6. Get involved. Join in chat. Chat in chat. Use commands. Play bingo because, that lady says some pretty crazy things from time to time. Make clips. You can even have them featured. Maybe we can see your clips someday. Spin the pages, which are like right down there somewhere. They look like a book or something. The thing down there with a number under chat. And just do whatever you can to enjoy chat. Thanks for watching.
It's over. I don't have to fill in time twiddling my thumbs. No, not at all. There was something I was going to say. What was I going to say? I can't remember. No idea. Doesn't matter. So we're starting a new book today. We're starting this one here, Tom Swift and His Airship. Poor choice for the inventor as a key. Well, it was one of the words that was available. Airship was more common than inventor was. You can sort them if you want, but that was what was available when I was doing my word list. Anyway, so Tom Swift and His Airship by Victor Appleton. That is a pseudonym, obviously, because I've got it italicized. And it was first published in 1910, and it's an American book by an American author. Now, let's find out a little tiny bit about it. I will willingly choose the keywords if you give me some good suggestions. So, there was something I was going to tell you about this. Tom Swift series was, there it is. Right. So the Tom Swift books, I'm not going to give you lots of details. We have had other Tom Swift books, but this is just a quick reminder. Okay. So Tom Swift is Tom Swift, not Tom Swift Jr., because that's another series of books, again, also done by Stratemeyer Syndicate, which were meant to be sequels to the series that we're currently reading. So they're supposedly written by Victor Appleton, just like Nancy Drew's written by Carolyn Keene, who doesn't actually exist. It's a pseudonym, and all that sort of stuff. There's a lot of those sort of things. In the Stratemeyer Syndicate books, that's how they work things. So most of the first series of books were written by a guy called Howard Roger Garris. Now, I don't know if he went by Howard or if he went by Roger or if he was one of those, no, it's Howard Roger, thank you very much, sort of people, because some people do that. But Mr. Garris was the author, and apparently he was a good friend of Stratemeyer, Mr. Stratemeyer. And he's also the guy who actually wrote the Uncle Wiggily stories, which is the ones about Uncle Wiggily was an animal character who had a car. We had a couple of chapters from one of the books that he was in for, was it Christmas, I think, one year. So written for much younger children. Now, Mr. Garris and his wife both actually were authors, and he wrote quite a lot of books for Stratemeyer Syndicate. He also wrote some other stuff too. I don't know what. I'm not really too worried about that. But he ghost wrote nearly 300 books for Stratemeyer Syndicate. That's a fair bit of writing. So there's a whole set of other skills that you have if you are an author that does work like the stuff that was required for Stratemeyer Syndicate. None of this artistic inspiration and, no, the muse is not upon me, so therefore I cannot currently write. No, just get on with it as a job. I actually have a friend who's an author who used to be do court reports and stuff like that for the newspaper for the city she worked at, that she was living in. And she did that for quite a number of years. She was a court reporter effectively and did other stuff as well. And because of that, and working as that sort of reporter, not here's a big exciting story, but here's a regular thing that you have to do, you get very, very good at having, these are the parameters of how the sort of writing you do works, what you have to fit in within. And then these are the key points, because like for her it would be, these are the current court cases, this is the interesting things going on, or these are the notable cases going on that people are wanting to know about. Using those, like we have key points in the stories for any of the Stratemeyer Syndicate's books. And so she would write on a regular basis and produce the stuff, and it got published and then local news, and not just a local regional tiny little paper, but one of the slightly bigger city ones. So not just a amateur effort sort of thing. And she's actually since gone on to become a crime writer as an author of fiction, and they're very good. They are a lot more factual basis to the way she writes, unlike some of them which are totally outrageous. And also she's been able to write, since she started writing them, she's been able to write probably one every 6, write and publish. Most of that time since she's been writing her novels, she's been writing one every 6 months. Whereas a lot of authors like me, it's like years and years between stories. It's because we have to wait for the muse to arrive and inspire us for the next part of it. Instead of, she doesn't plan them all out. She gets a kernel of an idea, and then she starts writing that down. She puts any key points that come to mind along the way as notes, and then she connects dots. She doesn't plan everything, and yet they are very readable. They feel very based in the real world, which is excellent. So that sort of thinking of, these are the deadlines, this is the framework I have to work within, actually can be really good. Some people as authors give that to themselves by being a planner for their story. When they're writing a novel, they will plan everything out. And it's kind of like before you even get to edit stage, or second and third draft stage, it's like they've already written the book 5 times. And yet most of the words they've written don't come into it, but the concepts that they've set down in place for where they're going to go with the story are. The sad thing is there's a lot of authors who write like that, and it feels very predictable. You can feel the planning that's gone into it, unfortunately. So it's been really nice discovering other authors who actually just, this is what's coming next, this is what's coming next. She'll often say, oh, I'm not quite sure how this one's going to resolve at the moment, or I'm stuck in a corner. And so she'll just let it sit for a little while, and then the main character will actually drop a hint as to what's going on. Just because what happens is your unconscious still keeps processing things, and so it will chew over anything like that and then go, hang on, here's a thread that works, and present that to you as being from that character. So it's really quite fun actually hearing how it goes. I would trade Airship for Motor and Inventor for Lad. Oh, okay. These ones too common, you reckon? Thank you for checking. What I did was I actually downloaded the results and then sorted it by word type. So I was just looking at nouns. I think if you keep your 3, you'll be refilling a... Good point. Thank you very much. Okay, we're changing those words then. Keywords. Well, here we go. Let's change these keywords. Well, at least we had a starting point anyway. So Airship is now going to be motor, and Inventor is going to be lad. There you go. So yeah, when we're choosing keywords, this is for anyone else who's wondering about how this works. We will actually look at a website that will give us a word count by word type. And for me, I've found we've tried it with some ones that are adjectives and verbs. Actually, no, it was verbs mainly, and I kept missing them. Whereas nouns, I am much more likely to actually pick up that we've had one of them. And so what we've been doing is going through the list, because the results it will give you by the most number of a word through to the least number of a word that has the least number of usages. And I discovered if you download it as a CSV file with comma separated value, which is something you open with Microsoft Excel or any other spreadsheet program, and then sort the column that is word type, like whether it's a noun, a verb, etc., like that, it will then actually sort them still in numerical order, but in those clusters for whether it's a noun, whether it's a verb, because the actual website gives you the results saying what sort of word it is. And so then it becomes a lot less pages that you have to scroll through to find it. So thank you very much for sorting that out, Goriki. Yeah, I don't really need to be sloshing downstairs halfway through to go and refill a water bottle. Very good point. So the thing I was going to read a snippet out of something here about the Tom Swift series. Now, there is a link to do with Tom Swift that I've got in the commands. If you use that, it's probably just exclamation Tom Swift. One of the links that are in the results it will give you is this page on encyclopedia.com. And I'm not going to read the whole thing. There's just a couple of tiny bits, sentence or two that I want to read from it. An excerpt from an advertisement written by Edward Stratemeyer for the first Tom Swift books characterises the scope of this series. It is the purpose of these spirited tales to convey in a realistic way the wonderful advances in land and sea locomotion, and to interest the boy of the present in the hope that he may be a factor in aiding the marvellous development that is coming in the future. So he wanted to encourage young people's imagination to do with actual science and development of scientific ideas that could be put to practical use. And I thought that was really cool. And if you didn't know it, the Stratemeyer Syndicate created more than 1,400 books between 1904 and 1984. That's a lot of books. It was a little bit... I told you it was Howard Garris. So they did have a couple of other writers involved, but Howard Garris wrote most of them. I'm just assuming his name, he's just called Howard Garris. I don't know, I'm just shortening his name, like I do. No. I'm just trying to find that bit, the other bit that jumped out at me at the time. No, can't see it there. No. Anyway, so that's one of the pages you can have a look at about it. I found the other link that's available in that when you use the Tom Swift command is to a page at a site called tomswift.info. Now, the page that it takes you to is the home page for the original series, not the newer series. And the guy actually theorizes about where Tom Swift is based and says there's a supposition that it's based on Lake George in upstate New York, which is a real place. And so that's what this is, Lake George. It's no, Tom Swift. Sorry, I didn't actually put an alias on that one. I should have done, but I didn't think of it. So there you go. It's quite handy to actually have some idea of the type of places that people who are familiar with the countryside that a lot of books are set in, to hear what their ideas are about where things are, because it helps you to visualize it a bit more, like the fact that I've got this behind me. It helped me to go, oh, actually, yeah, that makes a lot of sense. So, yeah, there is no actual Lake Carlopa. His idea was that it was probably Lake George, whoever this person is that wrote it. And he's written a little bit about this particular book. There is a link there to this to a page for this particular book. No, we'll worry about that when we get to it. Here we go. So we're going to read Tom Swift and His Airship by Victor Appleton. There are no illustrations, okay? The nearest you get is the book cover. Here we go. Tom Swift and His Airship by Victor Appleton. And the contents, yay, it has a table of contents with chapter numbers and titles for the chapters. I like that. Chapter 1, An Explosion. It's been a while since we had a Tom Swift book, but I'm not going to re-explain what our previous book was because I happen to know that the Stratemeyer Syndicate books do that for us. They usually drop us right into the middle of some action in media res, and then after we've got caught up in the story, they will then take a step back and tell us a little bit about the main character that we're dealing with and also what has happened recently in the previous books, because they're also selling the other books in the series. Here we go. Chapter 1, An Explosion. Are you all ready, Tom? All ready, Mr. Sharp, replied a young man who was stationed near some complicated apparatus, while the questioner, a dark man with a nervous manner, leaned over a large tank. This is a little bit ominous when it's called The Explosion. You know, the chapter is called, or An Explosion. Very ominous. Leaned over a large tank. I'm going to turn the gas on now, went on the man. Look out for yourself. I'm not sure what may happen. Neither am I, but I'm ready for it. If it does explode, it can't do much damage. Oh, I hope it doesn't explode. We've had so much trouble with the airship. I trust nothing goes wrong now. Well, turn on the gas, Mr. Sharp, advised Tom Swift. There you go. We've finally got our main character named. I'll watch the pressure gauge, and if it goes too high, I'll warn you and you can shut it off. The man nodded. Actually, these days, you have to have the pressure gauge right near the off tap, so that the person who's seeing it can respond immediately. Safety purposes. The man nodded and with a small wrench in his hand went to one end of the tank. The youth, looking anxiously at him, turned his gaze now and then toward a gate. He should have his eyes fixed on the gauge. Turned his gaze... Oh, by the way, I have my brick wall handy for bashing my head against if young Tom gets a little bit too silly. Because sometimes he's not the sharpest knife in the drawer. Let's carry on. Turned his gaze now and then towards a gauge, somewhat like those on steam boilers. Which gauge, that one, was attached to an aluminium cigar-shaped affair about 5 feet long. Presently there was a hissing sound in the small frame building where the two were conducting an experiment which meant much to them. The hissing grew louder. Be ready to jump, advised Mr. Sharp. Oh dear. I will, answered the lad, but the pressure is going up very slowly. Maybe you'd better turn on more gas. I will. Here she goes. Look out now, you can't tell what is going to happen. Back in the days of let's try it and find out. With a sudden hiss as the powerful gas under pressure passed from the tank through the pipes and into the aluminium container, the hand on the gauge swept past figure after figure on the dial. Shut it off! Cried Tom quickly. It's coming too fast! Shut her off! The man sprang to obey the command and with nervous fingers sought to fit the wrench over the nipple of the controlling valve. Then his face seemed to turn white with fear. I can't move it, Mr. Sharp yelled. It's jammed. I can't shut off the gas. Run, look out, she'll explode. There you go. And I'll tell you about the valve in a minute in terms of real life. Tom Swift, the young inventor whose acquaintance some of you have previously made, gave one look at the gauge and, seeing that the pressure was steadily mounting, endeavoured to reach and open a stopcock that he might relieve the strain. One trial showed him that the valve there had jammed too, and catching up a roll of blueprints, the lad made a dash for the door of the shop. That's the workshop, by the way. He was not a second behind his companion, and hardly had they passed out of the structure before there was a loud explosion, which shook the building and shattered all the windows in it. Pieces of wood, bits of metal, and a cloud of sawdust and shavings flew out of the door after the man and the youth, and this was followed by a cloud of yellowish smoke. Why yellowish? I don't know. "Are you hurt, Tom?" cried Mr. Sharp as he swung around to look back at the place where the hazardous experiment had been conducted. "Not a bit. How about you?" "I'm all right, but it was touch and go. Good thing you had the gauge on, or we'd never have known when to run. Well, we've made another failure of it." And the man spoke somewhat bitterly. "Never mind, Mr. Sharp," went on Tom Swift. "I think it will be the last mistake. I see what the trouble is now and know how to remedy it. Come on back and we'll try it again. That is, if the tank hasn't blown up." That's a good point. "No, I guess that's all right. Although the tank shouldn't have blown up, it's more likely that if debris hit it, that it would have blown up." "No, I guess that's all right. It was the aluminium container that went up, and that's so light it didn't do much damage. But we'd better wait until some of those fumes escape. They're not healthy to breathe." The cloud of yellowish smoke was slowly rolling away, and the man and lad were approaching the shop, which, in spite of the explosion that had taken place in it, was still intact, when an aged man coming from a handsome house not far off called out, "Tom, is anyone hurt?" "No, Dad, we're all right." "What happened?" "Well, we had another explosion. We can't seem to get the right mixture of the gas, but I think we've had the last of our bad luck. We're going to try again. Up to now, the gas has been too strong, the tank too weak, or else our valve control is bad." Which I would say it still is, if you couldn't turn it off. "Oh dear, Mr. Swift, do tell them to be careful," a woman's voice chimed in. "I'm sure something dreadful will happen. This is about the 10th time something is blown up around here, and—" "It's only the 9th, Mrs. Baggett," and Russ interrupted Tom somewhat indignantly. He's keeping track. "No, you can't say it's 10. It was only 9. "Well, goodness me, isn't 9 almost as bad as 10? There I was, just putting my bread in the oven," went on Mrs. Baggett, the housekeeper, "and I was so startled that I dropped it." "Oh, my goodness, Cosroy has redeemed the hoop of Whipple." We had 2 images, too. That's odd. What are we going to get? Oh, let's find out. And it is Mini Bo. Oh, I haven't changed them again. Bother. Sorry. I knew there was yet another thing I was going. Is this the second in a row Bo minute? Yes, it is. So you can choose again. Because the last actual headband redeem was Mini Bo. Unless you're happy for me to wear Mini Bo. I'm going to give you a choice of 3, unless you want Mini Bo. One of these 3. Which one do you want instead of Mini Bo? I'll let you have a think about that. Right. My favourite purple. My favourite purple would probably be Top Knot, actually. It's probably the most, to me, real purple. I call this purple. I call this, to me, is not really purple. So which one was it that you were choosing? You can have that one if you want, but I don't call that. It's purple, but only purplish, whereas to me, this is purple. So I'm going to say, would you rather this one or this one? Oh, my purple. Okay, then. Here we go. I'll put this on and we will get the headbands going. No, we're not going to get the headbands going. We're going to get the egg timer going. Oh, dear. Mister's probably hearing me yakkering away really loud like this and wondering what the hang's going on. Egg timer. I've got one here somewhere. Here it is. And let's turn it on and run it. There it is. That one's going. There. Right. Here we go. We'll carry on reading. So for those who haven't been here before, this is going to make a loud noise and flash red at us. I think it's red. When it gets to the end of its 6 minutes running. And in the meantime, I will keep on reading. And after being a bit cool all day, I'm now getting too warm, probably because I'm talking and waving my hands around and stuff like that. Where do we get to? Sorry, itchy nose. Isn't 9 almost as bad as 10? Well, there I was, just putting my bread in the oven, went on Mrs. Baggert, the housekeeper, and I was so startled that I dropped it, and now the dough is all over the kitchen floor. I never saw such a mess. Tom, get in there and clean it up. No, that's what I said, but that's what I'd be thinking. I'm sorry, answered the youth, trying not to laugh. We'll see that it doesn't happen again. He's still not offering to go and clean it up, which he should do if he wants to stay on her good side. If she's the housekeeper and cook, and he goes off on adventures, he wants to have her thinking of him favourably because she's the one who's going to provide the yummies for their any trips they do. Short-sighted, isn't it? Yes, that's what you always say, rejoined the motherly-looking woman who looked after the interests of Mr. Swift's house. That's Tom's dad. Well, we mean it this time, retorted the lad. We see where our mistake was, don't we, Mr. Sharp? I think so, replied the other seriously. Otherwise she could call claimsies on the house while oh, she could indeed, yes. Come on back and we'll see what damage was done, proposed Tom. Maybe we can rig up another container, mix some fresh gas and make the final experiment this afternoon. Now, do be careful, cautioned Mr. Swift, the aged inventor. Once more, aged. I can see why you said I shouldn't be using the word inventor. I'm afraid you two have set too hard a task for yourselves this time. No, we haven't, Dad, answered his son. You'll see us yet skimming along above the clouds. If you go above the clouds, I shan't be very likely to see you, but go slowly now. Don't blow the place up again. Mr. Swift went into the house, followed by Mrs. Baggert, who was loudly bewailing the fate of her bread. Tom and Mr. Sharp started toward the shop where they had been working. It was one of several buildings built for experimental purposes and patent work by Mr. Swift near his home. It didn't do so very much damage, observed Tom, as he peered in through a window void of all the panes of glass. Yeah, there's now broken glass all through the lawn, thank you very much, or over the yard, whatever it is. We can start right in. Hold on, wait, don't try it now, exclaimed Mr. Sharp, who talked in short, snappy sentences, which, however, said all he meant. The fumes of that gas aren't good to breathe. Wait until they've blown away. It won't be long. It's safer. He began to cough, choking from the pungent odour, and Tom felt an unpleasant tickling sensation in his throat. Take a walk around, advised Mr. Sharp. I'll be looking over the blueprints. Let's have 'em. Tom handed over the roll he had grabbed up when he ran from the shop, just before the explosion took place, and while his companion spread them out on his knee as he sat on an upturned barrel, the lad walked toward the rear of the yard. It was enclosed by a high board fence with a locked gate, made with planks of wood, I guess. But Tom, undoing the fastenings, stepped out into a broad green meadow at the rear of his father's property. As he did so, he saw 3 boys running towards him. Have they made any ancient comments about his dad yet? The aged inventor is about the nearest we've had. I kind of feel like Tom must have been a really late child. I know that Tom's mum is no longer around in the stories. I don't know why. I can't remember if they even told us. But they're always talking about the aged inventor, which makes him sound decrepit. Oh dear. As he did so, he saw 3 boys running towards him. Hello, exclaimed our hero. There are Andy Foger, Sam Snedeker and Pete Bailey. I wonder what they're headed this way for. Now, I know why this sentence is in here. This is to introduce 3 new characters who are secondary characters to Tom, who's one of the main characters. Now, But just let's be realistic for a minute. How often do you say to yourself out loud, hello, there's James, John and Joseph coming towards us. I wonder what they're coming over here for. You don't do that unless there's somebody else within earshot who may actually overhear it and get into conversation with you about it, because your brain works that way. Your brain is very social. You don't say that. Most people, John Jacob Jingle, most people don't speak that sort of thing out loud unless you're focusing on a task. Then you'll talk about what you're doing to help you to keep the flow of what you're doing. But when it's seeing something and people coming towards you, you don't tend to say it out loud unless there's somebody else with you to get their opinion. So yeah, storytelling wise, we are going to have a lot of this sort of, oh, it's not red, sorry, it's turquoise. I forgot. Here we go. So there goes purple pom-poms. And we shall turn off the egg timer and set it aside so if we need it later on, we've got it. There you go. Excuse me. Still got a little bit of a tickle in my throat. And I am going to have a drink of water. 3 boys, not 3 lads. So it's okay. You don't have to yet. Except if I have a drink, you're meant to. But it's not one of the ones here. I haven't got a counting mechanism set up yet. I'm hoping to at some stage. Right. And I think I did write that one down last time when Goriki suggested it. Or somebody suggested it. I wonder what they're heading this way for. On the trio came, increasing their pace as they caught sight of Tom. Andy Foger, a red-haired and squint-eyed lad, talk about caricatures, a sort of town bully with a rich and indulgent father, was the first to reach the young inventor. How many people were killed? Panted Andy. Okay, he's the town bully, but he's still asking if anyone got killed. Shall we go for doctors? Asked Sam. Can we see the place? Blurted out Pete, and he had to sit down on the grass. He was so winded. Killed? Doctors? Repeated Tom, clearly much puzzled. What are you fellows driving at, anyhow? Wasn't there a lot of people killed in the explosion we heard? Demanded Andy in eager tones. Not a one, replied Tom. There was an explosion, exclaimed Pete. We heard it, and you can't fool us. And we saw the smoke, added Snedeker. Yes, there was a small explosion, admitted Tom with a smile, but no one was killed or even hurt. We don't have such things happen in our shops. Nobody killed, repeated Andy questioningly, and the disappointment was evident in his tones. Goriki's asking the 8-ball, is that your name too? And for the 8-ball says, are you kidding? Nom. What a response. Nobody killed, repeated Andy questioningly, and the disappointment was evident in his tones. Nobody hurt? Asked Sam, his crony, and he too showed his chagrin. All our running for nothing, continued Pete, another crony, in disgust. What happened? Demanded the red-haired lad, as if he had a right to know. Okay, so 8-ball doesn't work in a reply. It replied to you. I don't quite get that. I'll figure it out later. It's what often this happens. Somebody will say something and I'll answer the surface thread of it that I am reading, but my brain doesn't process it to be able to get what they were saying until a bit later on. Then I go, oh my goodness, I should have figured that one out. Right. What happened? Demanded the red-haired lad, as if he had a right to know. We were walking along the lake road and we heard an awful racket. If the police come out here, you'll have to tell what it was, Tom Swift. He spoke defiantly. In other words, you better tell us because you're going to have to tell the police anyway. I've no objection to telling you or the police, replied Tom. There was an explosion. My friend Mr. Sharp, the balloonist, and I were conducting an experiment with a new kind of gas, and it was too strong, that's all. An aluminium container blew up, but no particular damage was done. I hope you're satisfied. Huh. What were you making, anyhow? Demanded Andy, and again he spoke as if he had a right to know. I don't know that it's any of your business. Tom came back at him sharply. But as everyone will soon know, I may as well tell you, we're building an airship. An airship? Exclaimed Sam and Pete in one breath. An airship? Queried Andy, and there was a sneer in his voice. I got that one, didn't I? Well, I don't think you can do it, Tom Swift. You'll never build an airship, even if you have a balloonist to help you. Okay, be rude about it then. I won't, said Tom and Tom was a trifle nettled at the sneering manner of his rival. No, you won't. It takes a smarter fellow than you are to build an airship that will sail. I believe I will beat you at it myself. Oh, you think you could? Asked Tom, and this time he mastered his emotions. He was not going to let Andy Foger make him angry. Maybe you can beat me at racing too, he went on. If you think so, bring out your red streak and I'll try the arrow against her. Beat you twice and I can do it again. That was where we last got up to. This unexpected taunt disconcerted Andy. It was the truth, for more than once had Tom in his motorboat proved more than a match for the squint-eyed bully and his cronies. Go back at him, Andy, advised Sam in a low voice. Don't take any of his guff. I don't intend to, spluttered Andy. Maybe you did beat me at the races because my motor wasn't working right, he conceded. But you can't do it again, even though that was the second time. Anyhow, it's got nothing to do with an airship. I'll bet you can't make one. I don't bet, replied Tom calmly. But if you wait a few weeks, you'll see me in an airship, and then if you want to race the red streak against that, I'll accommodate you. Or if you want to enter into a competition to build a dirigible balloon or an aeroplane, I am willing. Think you're smart, don't you? Just because you helped save that balloonist from being killed when his balloon caught fire, went on Andy for want of something better to say. But you'll never build an airship. Of course he won't, added Sam and Pete, bound to side with their crony to whom they were indebted for many automobile and motorboat rides. Just wait, advised Tom with a tantalising smile. Meanwhile, if you want to try the red streak against the arrow, I'm willing. I have an hour or so to spare. Keep still, muttered Andy, much discomfited, for the defeat of his speedy boat by a much smaller and less powerful one was a sore point with him. You just wait, that's all. I'll get even with you. Look here, cried Tom suddenly. You always say that whenever I get the best of you. I'm sick of hearing it. I consider that a threat, and I don't like it. If you don't look out, Andy Foger, you'll have trouble with me, and at no very distant date. Tom, with flashing eyes and clenched fists, took a step forward. Andy shrank back. Don't be afraid of him, advised Sam. We'll stand by you, Andy. If you need your friends to back you up, then you're really not the strongest person in the room. I ain't afraid, muttered the red-haired lad, but it was noticed that he shuffled off. You just wait, I'll fix you, he added to Tom. The bully was plainly in a rage. The young inventor was about to reply, and possibly would have made a more substantial rejoinder to Andy than mere words, when the gate opened and Mr. Sharp stepped out. The fumes have all cleared away, Tom, he said. We can go in the shop now. Without further notice of Andy Foger, Tom Swift turned aside and followed the aeronaut into the enclosed yard. I'm hoping they remembered to lock the gate, because he unlocked it to go out. Or maybe you're stronger because you trust in others. Yeah. Ned Sees Mysterious Men, Chapter 2. Who are those fellows? Asked the balloonist of his companion. Oh, some chaps who think we'll never build our airship, Mr. Sharp. Andy Foger and his crowd. Well, we'll show them whether we will or not, rejoined the man. I've just thought of one point where we made a mistake. Your father suggested it to me. We need a needle valve in the gas tank. Then we can control the flow of vapour better. Of course, replied Tom. Why didn't I think of that? Let's try it. And the pair hurried into the machine shop, eager to make another test, which they hoped would be more successful. That's what I was going to say. The Tom Swift books, they were all about the inventions in especially the earlier books were actually ideas that were existing. They were being talked about in magazines like Scientific American and things like that. And so to get young people interested in this, Stratemeyer said, let's write stories with these same sort of things in them and just project forward very near science fiction, like near to where we are now. So it's just a slight stretch of the imagination going forwards. So all of the different things, they're ever so slightly better than the ones that actually work in real life at the time that they were being developed. But that's what he was doing. He was taking ideas of things that actually were being developed that were fairly new, and then projecting forward a little and giving them to the main character or the main character's dad to be part of the story. So there you go. That's part of what I was going to tell you about. I think there was a little bit mention of it somewhere here. No, not on that page. It must have been on that other page that I had in front of me before. Doesn't matter. Here we go. Next part of the chapter. And the pair hurried into, of course, why didn't I think of that? Let's try it. That's about a needle valve. And the pair hurried into the machine shop, eager to make another test, which they hoped would be more successful. Have we had any of those words? Motor, lad, or gas? We've had gas a few times, I feel. The gas has dispersed. Nobody's keeping track. Oh dear. At the end of the next chapter, no, we've only just started this one. Let's have a few slugs of water. And I didn't change the names on the bottles. That was the other thing I forgot. So just pretend this one's the gas bottle, one with purple on top. I'm going to give you 4 drinks of water for all of the times gas has been said up until chapter 2. 2, 3, 4. So purple on top is gas. Green on top is lad. And motor is this one. Hopefully I'll remember which is which. Go with the label or the food inspector will be furious. Yes. Well, okay. Well, you tell me when minor comes up in the story and I will drink to it. So here we go. We're getting into chapter, what was it? Chapter 2? Yeah, chapter 2. Ned sees mysterious men. And I can't remember who Ned was. I think he was a worker. The young inventor Tom, so this is probably where we're going to find out about previous stories and the basis of the type of story this is. The young inventor for Tom Swift was entitled to that title. I know it's not actually using the same word, but my editing inclined brain doesn't like having the same root word in 2 words in the same sentence. So tempted to word search and find out, you'll be sorry. Go on. The young inventor for Tom Swift was entitled to that title, having patented several machines, lived with his father, Barton Swift, on the outskirts of the small town of Shopton in New York State. Now, Shopton is not a real place. I will give you a map that shows you something, a view of the Shopton area facing south. So this is, in theory, is from the balloon, but we're not going to worry about that. So this is meant to be it here. I was forgetting that was going to be behind the... Let's turn off the overlay for a minute when I find it. Overlay. There's overlay, which means the chat will go away. So there you go. This is the current... This is an actual map of Lake... I can't remember. Oh, it's on this page. I looked it up. I looked up the page. Lake George, that's the one. The proposed countryside overview below, that's this picture here, is based on the supposition that Lake George in upstate New York is the real-world pattern on which Tom Swift's universe was built. Darn, the closest is part of Examiner. Nice try. Well done, though. So there you go. This, if you look up Lake George on maps, you'll see this lake here. And the theory is that, trying to get this to my hand to point in the right direction here, that this lake here is Lake Carlopa in the series, which makes sense of the things like the little inlets and the islands and the other things like this that were described in the motorboat racing. And Mansburg is the big town that's nearby, I think. Sandport is... Oh, there's Shopton. That's it. Shopton's where they are. Sandport, I think, is the main town on the lake, the biggest town on the lake. And then Mansburg, I think, is kind of like the nearest city or regional town that will be more central than this one. I think. I can't remember. It's been a while since we've read one of these books. But you can keep these in mind if you want. So let's turn that off and turn the overlay back on, because then we've got chat back on screen when people are chatting. It's timed out at the moment, so that's why you're not seeing it. So let's carry on. Having painted, he was entitled to call himself an inventor because he'd patented several machines. He lived with his father, Barton Swift, on the outskirts of the small town of Shopton in New York State. Mr. Swift was quite wealthy, having amassed a considerable fortune from several of his patents, because he also was an inventor. As he also was an inventor. Tom's mother had been dead since he was a small child, and Mrs. Baggert kept house for the widower and his son. There was also in their household an aged engineer called Garrett Jackson, who attended to the engine and boilers that operated machinery and apparatus in several small shops. Keep in mind that the word shops in these books often refers to workshops, not places you buy things. In several small shops that surrounded the Swift homestead, for Mr. Swift did most of his work at home. As related in the first volume of this series, I told you, entitled Tom Swift and His Motorcycle, the lad had passed through some strenuous adventures. That's where we came up with the idea of the brick wall for banging our head against, because young Tom sometimes is a little bit dense. He does not take hint when things happen sometimes in the story. He just sort of ignores them, gives the situation the benefit of the doubt. And the idea, we realised, was that the young readers that these books were written for were being catered to. They were being given the opportunity to feel like they were cleverer than the clever main character in the story. They could see what was going on even if he couldn't. It's a great way, actually, to get young people who are reluctant readers to actually buy into the story a little bit more, where they feel like they've got some insider knowledge that the main character doesn't. It gets them more involved in the story. So I think in that respect, it's quite smart. And we've got to remember, these weren't written for our age bracket. These were written for pre-teens through to early teens, although they didn't call them that then. That's why he's referred to as a youth, or sometimes he'll be referred to as a lad. Not as a derogatory thing, but just being not an adult. But also because an adult was considered in later teens was almost adulthood, whereas younger teens, no, not so much. Right, let's carry on with this. As related in the first volume of this series, entitled Tom Swift and His Motorcycle, see Brick Wall, the lad had passed through some strenuous adventures. A syndicate of rich men, disappointed in a turbine motor they had acquired from a certain inventor, not Tom's father, had hired a gang of scoundrels to get possession of a turbine Mr. Swift had invented. Just before they made the attempt, however, Tom became possessed of a motorcycle. Oh dear, how do you cast out a motorcycle? Sorry, my mind. Totally not what their intention was with this sentence. It had belonged to a wealthy man, Mr. Wakefield Damon of Waterford, near Lake Carlopa. Let's see if we can find that on the map. I don't see Waterford. Ah, there I do. Waterford. I don't know why it has the word Waterford there twice. Maybe there is a real place called Waterford on Lake George. Somebody want to look that up? Because there's Shopton and there's Waterford, partway down the lake. Right, we'll turn that off again. Mr. Wakefield Damon of Waterford near Lake Carlopa, which body of water adjoined the town of Shopton, but Mr. Damon had 2 accidents with the machine and sold it to Tom cheaply. Tom was riding his motorcycle to Albany. Albany is a real place in the state of New York, I know that. To deliver his father's model of the turbine motor to a lawyer in order to get a patent on it when he was attacked by the gang of bad men. These included Ferguson Appleton, Anson Morse, Wilson Featherton, alias Simpson, Jake Burke, alias Happy Harry, who sometimes masqueraded as a tramp, and Todd Borek, alias Murdoch. These men knocked Tom unconscious, stole the valuable model and some papers, and carried the youth away in their automobile. Later, the young inventor, following a clue, that was written the way I would write clue, not C-L-E-W, but C-L-U-E, because apparently C-L-E-W was an alternate spelling back in the day. Following a clue given him by Eradicate Sampson, an aged coloured man who, with his mule Boomerang, went around the country doing odd jobs, got onto the trail of the thieves in a deserted mansion in the woods at the upper end of the lake. Our hero, with the aid of Mr. Damon and some friends of the latter, raided the old house, but the men escaped. In the second book of the series, called Tom Swift and His Motorboat, there was related the doings of the lad, his father and his chum Ned Newton on Lake Carlopa. Tom bought at auction a motorboat the thieves had stolen and damaged, and fixing it up made a speedy craft of it, so speedy in fact, punctuation problems there, that it beat the racing boat Red Streak owned by Andy Foger. But Tom did more than race in his boat. He took his father on a tour for his health, and during Mr. Swift's absence from home, the gang of bad men stole some of the inventor's machinery. Tom set out after them in his motorboat, but the scoundrels even managed to steal that, hoping to get possession of a peculiar and mysterious treasure in it. And Tom had considerable trouble. Among other things he did when he had his craft was to aid a Miss Mary Nestor, who in her cousin's small boat, the Dot. You do not need to remember all of these people and things happening. If it's relevant, it'll come up. If it's not, just let it go by. This is more of a précis than we usually get for these sort of stories. Who in her cousin's small boat, the Dot, was having trouble with the engine, and you shall hear more of Miss Nestor presently. Hey, somebody who's going to be relevant, for she and Tom became quite friendly. Nudge, nudge, wink, wink. Friendly? I don't know. Probably not. Events so shaped themselves that Andy Foger was glad to loan Tom the Red Streak in which to search for the stolen arrow. So, I think roommates with inverted commas, quotation marks. I think Andy is one of these. Very occasionally you get on the good side of him. The rest of the time he sees you as someone who he has to try and be better than. Type things. Because, yeah, Tom actually rescued him at one stage. Andy Foger was glad to loan Tom the Red Streak in which to search for the stolen arrow, and it was in the latter craft that Tom, his father, and Ned Newton had a most thrilling adventure. They were on their way down the lake when, in the air overhead, they saw a balloon on fire with a man clinging to the trapeze. Trapeze. That's what you have in a circus tent for acrobats. They managed to save the... Oh, that's right. Yeah, it's kind of like... It's the bar with the ropes down each side, like the first rung on a rope ladder. Was that magnetic poetry? It does feel like it, doesn't it? They managed to save the fellow's life after a strenuous endeavour. The balloonist John Sharp was destined to play quite a part in Tom's life. I'm noticing a theme. Last time it was trapeze too. Yeah. It took me a while to remember that, because it's been a little while since we've had a Tom Swift book. Balloon on fire, man hanging from the trapeze. That was book 2. Because that was the motorboat one. And it was at the end of that book that happened. Mr. Sharp was more than an aeronaut. He was the inventor of an airship. That is, he had plans drawn for the most important parts, but he had struck a snag of clouds, as he expressed it, and could not make the machine work. His falling in with Mr. Swift and his son seemed providential. Was that a Freudian slip, his failing in? No, it's not meant to be. See ya. And his son seemed providential, for Tom and his father were at once interested in the prospect of navigating the upper air. Adverb universe, Mr. Swift, Mr. Sharp. They began a study of Mr. Sharp's plans, and the balloonist was now in a fair way to having the difficulties solved. His airship was primarily an aeroplane, but with a sustaining aluminium container shaped like a cigar and filled with a secret gas made partly of hydrogen, being very light and powerful. It was testing the effect of this gas on a small model of the aluminium container that the explosion told of in the first chapter occurred. In fact, it was only one of several explosions, but as Tom said, all the while they were eliminating certain difficulties, until now the airship seemed almost a finished thing. But a few more details remained to be worked out, and Mr. Swift and his son felt that they could master these. So it was with a feeling of no little elation, in other words, a feeling of elation, that the young inventor followed Mr. Sharp into the shop. The balloonist, it may be explained, we've had gas, haven't we? Sorry. Or something like it. The balloonist, it may be explained, had been invited to live with the Swifts pending the completion of the airship. Do you think we can get on the right track if we put the needle valve in? Asked Tom, as he noted with satisfaction that the damage from the explosion was not great. I'm sure we will, answered the aeronaut. Now, let's make another model container and try the gas again. Gas! Oh dear. Best extension I've ever gotten recently. Add muter for Twitch that mutes heads. So my poor ears are saved from the sound increase and unmutes when it's done. That's cool. That's excellent, because it means that anyone you're watching still gets their ad revenue from it, but you don't get deafened by it. That's a compromise I'm happy with. That's good. Well done. Do you think we'll get on the right track if we put the needle valve in? Asked Tom, as he noted with satisfaction that the damage from the explosion was not great. I'm sure we will, answered the aeronaut. Now let's make another model container and try the gas again. That's the one I already drank for. They set to work, with Mr. Swift helping them occasionally and Garrett Jackson, the engineer, lending a hand whenever he was needed. All that afternoon, work on the airship progressed. The joint inventors of it wanted to be sure that the sustaining gas bag, or aluminium container, would do its work properly, as this would hold them in the air and prevent accidents in case of a stoppage of the engine or propellers. No, engine is not the word up here, sadly. The aeroplane part of the airship was all but finished, and the motor, that's the other water bottle. And the motor, a powerful machine of new design built by Mr. Swift, was ready to be installed. All that afternoon, Tom, his father, and Mr. Sharp laboured in the shop. As it grew dusk, there sounded from the house the ringing of a bell. Oh, that wasn't the motor bottle, that was the lad bottle. No, it's now going to be the motor bottle. I'm going to put a note on these bottles so I know which is which. If I find a little bit of scrap paper that's the right sort of paper. Otherwise I'm going to forget. So water bottles, So we've got gas, and we've got lad, and we've got motor. So we've got the one with the turquoise top, teal, turquoise, pale blue, aqua. What do you call this colour? The lighter version of this colour here. I don't know. And this one is meant to be purple. It's not really. And the one in the middle is the luster finish. Right, I've got that written down there. So I grabbed the right bottle. Baby blue, kind of. It's got a little bit more green in it than that, I think. Bird's egg blue? Bird's egg green? I don't know. Colours are funny the way they have the sort of names they are, because we perceive different ones differently between each of us. And also context, sea glass blue. I don't know, because I don't usually I see sea glass in green, but I don't usually see it as a blue. As in, we don't have blue bottles that get turned into sea glass around here. Green, yes. Brown, mainly brown, beer bottles. Right, let's carry on. But I know what you mean by because of the lightening on it, from lightening, as in it becomes lighter because of the roughening on the surface. Anyway, I'll carry on. The motor was ready to be installed, yes. Cool. All that afternoon, Tom, his father, and Mr. Sharp laboured in the shop. As it grew dusk, there sounded from the house the ringing of a bell. "Supper time," remarked Tom, laying aside a wrench. "I wish Mrs. Baggett would wait about an hour. I'd have this valve nearly done by then." But the housekeeper was evidently not going to wait, for her voice supplemented the bell. Good on her. "Supper, supper," she called. "Come now, Mr. Swift, Tom, Mr. Sharp. I can't wait any longer. The meat and potatoes will be spoilt." "I suppose we'd better go in," remarked Mr. Sharp with something of a sigh. "We can finish tomorrow." Oh, that's a cool name for it, yeah. The shop, where certain parts of the airship were being made, was doubly locked. Sorry, I've got an itchy day today. It's just one of those things. And Jackson, the engineer, who was also a sort of watchman, was bidden to keep good guard for fear of the gang of unscrupulous men who had escaped from jail during a great storm. They keep always escaping. It's a standard idea in the Stratemeyer stories. Whoever the bad guys are, they will eventually get caught, they'll get put in prison, and then they'll escape. Who had escaped from jail during a great storm was still in the minds of Mr. Swift and his son, and give an occasional look in the shed where the aeroplane is, advised Mr. Sharp. It wouldn't take much to damage that now. "I'll pay particular attention to it," promised the engineer. "Don't worry, Mr. Sharp." After supper, the three gathered around the table on which were spread out sheets of paper. So they're not in a rush to get back. Covered with intricate figures and calculations which Mr. Swift and the balloonist went over with care. Tom was examining some blueprints which gave a sectional view of the proposed ship, and was making some measurements when the bell rang and Mrs. Baggett ushered in Ned Newton, the most particular chum of the young inventor. And in a more modern day and age, that specific phrasing would be used to imply all sorts of things, but it doesn't here. No. It's just his most particular chum. This is his best friend. It's what we would call now. "Hello, Ned," exclaimed Tom. "I was wondering what had become of you. Haven't seen you in a dog's age." Okay. "That's right," admitted Ned. "We've been working late nights at the bank, getting ready for the regular visit of the examiner, who usually comes along about this time. Well, how are things going, and how is the airship?" For, of course, Ned had heard of that. "Oh, pretty good. Had another explosion today. I suppose you heard?" "No, I hadn't." "I thought everyone in town had, for Andy Foger and his two cronies were on hand, and they usually tell all they know. Ah, Andy Foger, he makes me sick. He was scooting up the street in his auto just as I was coming in, honking his horn to beat the band. You'd think no one ever had an auto but him. He certainly was going fast." "Wait till I get in our airship," predicted Tom. "Then I'll show you what speed is." "Do you really think it will go fast?" "Of course it will, fast enough to catch Anson Morse and his crowd of scoundrels if we could get on their track." "Why, I thought they were in jail," replied Ned in some surprise. "Weren't they arrested after they stole your boat?" "Yes, and put in jail, but they managed to get out, and now they're free to make trouble for us again." Are you sure they're out of jail? Asked Ned, and Tom noted that his chum's face wore an odd look. Yeah, sure, of course I am, but why do you ask? Ned did not answer for a moment. He glanced at Tom's father, and the young inventor understood. Mr. Swift was getting rather along in age, and his long years of brain work had made him nervous. He's a doddery old man, is what they're telling us. Yes, here it is, exactly. He had a great fear of Morse and his gang, for they had made much trouble for him in the past. Tom appreciated his chum's hesitancy and guessed that Ned had something to say that he did not want Mr. Swift to hear. Come on up to my room, Ned. I've got something I want to show you, exclaimed Tom after a pause. He's thought up an excuse. Like, I've got to show you something and it's up in my room, so you'll have to come with me. He's saying it loud enough. I wish they'd say favourite chum from the bucket. Chum bucket. Excellent. The two lads left the room, Tom glancing apprehensively at his father, but Mr. Swift was so engrossed, together with the aeronaut, in making, one day it'll be astronaut, in making some calculations regarding wind pressure, that it is doubtful if either of the men were aware that the boys had gone. Now, what is it, Ned? Demanded our hero when they were safe in his apartment. Something's up, I can tell by your manner. What is it? Oh, yeah. Quick tip. Stratemeyer Syndicate authors in the early days were handed the series Bible and a thesaurus. Don't use an ordinary word if you can use a fancy word. Just one of those quirks. I don't know why, it just is. Anyway, we'll carry on. We're getting there. Yeah, I don't know. There would have been a reason why, but it doesn't make sense to me. It could be to do with the fact that the kids who were going to read these were also doing English as a subject at school, and you're expected to not use a bland, ordinary word. You're expected to be a little bit more expressive with your writing, because they're trying to get you to think outside of your current very limited vocabulary use at school. And so maybe that was part, I don't know. I suppose that if that kind of fitted in with that thinking, then it would mean that teacherly types would be less likely to object to these sort of books, if it helped get young lads reading and also expanded their vocabulary. It's also teaching kids to be careful when playing ball with your dads. He's made of fine china. Yeah, exactly. Where do we get? Now, what is it, Ned? Demanded our hero when they were safe in his apartment. No, that's my inverted commas. Something's up, I can tell by your manner. What is it? Maybe it's nothing at all, went on his chum. If I'd known, though, that those men had gotten out of jail, I would have paid more attention to what I saw tonight as I was leaving the bank to come here. What did you see? Demanded Tom, and his manner, which had been calm, became somewhat excited. Well, you know, I've been helping the pay teller straighten up his books, went on the young bank employee, and when I came out tonight after working for several hours, I was glad enough to hurry away from the slave den, as I call it. I almost ran up the street, not looking where I was going, when, just as I turned the corner, I bumped into a man. Nothing suspicious or wonderful in that, commented Tom. I've often run into people. Wait, advised Ned. To save myself from falling, I grabbed the man's arm. He did the same to me, and there we stood for a moment, right under a gas lamp. Gas. Different use, but gas. Right under a gas lamp, right under a street light. I looked down at his hands, and I saw on the little finger of the left one there was tattooed a blue ring, and Harry! Happy Harry, the tramp! Exclaimed Tom, now much excited. That's where he wears a tattooed ring. That's what I thought you'd told me, resumed Ned, but I didn't pay any attention to it at the time, and I had no idea that the men were out of jail. Well, what else happened? Inquired Tom. Not much more. I apologised to the man, and he to me, and we let go of each other. You sure about the ring on his finger? I don't think he would have noticed if he wasn't sure. I don't think he would have mentioned it. There was something significant enough, otherwise he wouldn't have noticed. That's what I'm trying to say. Positive, his hand was right in the light. But wait, that isn't all. I hurried on, not thinking much about it, when I saw another man step out of the dark shadows of Peterby's grocery, just beyond the bank. The man must have mistaken me for someone else, for he spoke to me. What did he say? He asked me a question. It was, is there any chance tonight? What did you tell him? Well, I was so surprised that I didn't know what to say, and before I could get my wits together, the man had seen his mistake and hurried on. He joined the man I'd collided with, and the two skipped off in the darkness, but not before a third man came from across the street, from in front of the bank, and hurried off with them. We know what's going to happen. It's very obvious, isn't it? Well, asked Tom as his chum paused. I don't know what to think, resumed Ned. These men were certainly acting suspiciously, and now that you tell me the Anson Morse gang is not locked up, well, it makes me feel that these must be some of their crowd. Of course they are, declared Tom positively. That blue ring proves it. I wouldn't go so far as to say that, declared Ned. The man certainly had a blue ring tattooed on his finger, the same finger where you say Happy Harry had his. But what would the men be doing in this neighbourhood? They certainly have had a lesson not to meddle with any of your things. No, don't believe they're after any of Dad's inventions this time, but I tell you what I do believe. What? Those men are planning to rob the Shopton Bank, Ned. And I advise you to notify the officers. That Morse gang is one of the worst in the country. And Tom, much excited, began to pace the room, while Ned, who had not dreamt of such an outcome of his narrative, looked startled. Yes, startled. End of chapter. I think it's time for a snack and a drink of some coffee. So did you bring along anything yummy to drink or yummy to eat? I'm trying to find the opening on this. I've got some plastic cheese. I finally found it. You know how sometimes it's really hard to find the edge? I don't know why, it just is. Right. Oop. I was taking a little corner off because when I go to bed at night, I take a couple of sleep supplements, and so I don't get indigestion from them. I will have a slice of cheese. There's a certain somebody who happens to like it, and I've checked he's allowed to eat it, as long as it's only a little bit. So I give him a tiny little corner of it, smaller than a kibble, 3 times, and that's it, and he knows that. But I'm surprised. He's sound asleep. He's ignoring any of the sounds of me unwrapping things because it's not the time of day that I usually give him any. But it just amused me that I nearly went to tear a corner off for him. Coffee. Yes, that noise was the air being sucked back into my coffee box. Juice box, but for coffee. Right. Chapter 3, Whitewashed. Okay. Whitewash used to be used as a preservative and quasi-paint back in the day. Oh, there were some places when we were in France or the Netherlands. There were some places that would have a band of white paint, it looked like white paint, around the trees down the side of the road. And apparently it was whitewash because there are certain insects, certain bugs that the eggs for them are laid in the ground, and then they hatch out and they crawl up the tree, and then they burrow into the tree and they can cause damage. Either that or they eat the leaf buds or whatever like that. And it can do a lot of damage to the trees. And so one of the solutions is you put whitewash around the trunk of the tree, because whitewash itself is slightly acidic, I think. I'm not sure. I can't remember. But something that they don't like and they won't crawl across. And it's also gets a dry, powdery surface to it. And so it's a very handy way of protecting those trees. I thought that was really cool when I found out that that's actually a very traditional solution to a fairly old problem. So, yeah, whitewashed? I don't know what it means. Let's tell your father, Tom, suggested Ned after a pause. He'll know what to do. No, I'd rather not, answered the young inventor quickly. Dad has had trouble enough with these fellows, and I don't want him to worry anymore. Besides, he's working on a new invention, and if I tell him about the Happy Harry gang, it will take his attention from it. Well, talk to Mr. Sharp about it. He's an adult. Or Mrs. What's-her-name, the cook, housekeeper, or the guard watchman dude, who's also an engineer. You know, any of them will do. What invention is he planning now? I don't know, but it's something important by the way he keeps at it. He hardly spares time to help Mr. Sharp and me on the airship. No, we'll keep this news from Dad. Then I'll inform the bank officials, as you suggested. Well, yeah, you should do. If the place was robbed, they might blame me if they found out I'd seen the men and failed to tell them. Well, that gang would only be too glad to have the blame fall on someone else. Tom little knew how near the truth he had come in his chance expression, or how soon he himself was to fall under suspicion in connection with the same band of bad men. I'll telephone to the president on my way home, decided Ned, and he can notify the watchman at the bank. But do you really expect to have your airship in shape to fly soon? Oh, yes, now that we've found out our mistake about the gas, the rest will be easy. I think I'd like to take a trip in one myself if it didn't go too high, ventured Ned. I'll remember that when we have ours completed, promised his chum, and I'll take you for a spin. The boys talked for perhaps an hour longer, mostly about the airship, for it was the latest mechanical affair in which Tom was interested, and naturally foremost in his thoughts. Then Ned went home, however, telephoning from Tom's house to the bank president about having seen the suspicious men. That official thanked his young employee and said he would take all necessary precautions. The telephone message was not sent until Mr. Swift was out of hearing, as Tom was determined that his father should have no unnecessary worry about the unscrupulous men. As it was, the news that the gang was out of jail had caused the aged inventor some alarm. So that was news that they already had for this book. It was not without some anxiety that Tom arose the next morning, fearing he would hear news that the bank had been broken into, but no such alarming report circulated in Shopton. In fact, having made some inquiries that day of Ned, he learned that no trace had been seen of the mysterious men. The police had been on the lookout, but they'd seen nothing of them. Maybe, after all, they weren't the same ones, suggested Ned when he paid Tom another visit the next night. Like, lots of people have a blue ring tattoo on that particular finger, I'm sure. No. It's notable. If it's notable, then it's very, very likely to be that same person. There was a fire sale on the tattoos. All of them have got it. No, you just go rounding up everybody who's got that tattoo because they're all part of some criminal gang, apparently. Maybe they weren't the same ones, suggested Ned when he paid Tom another visit the next night. Well, of course it's possible they weren't, admitted the young inventor. I'd be very glad to think so. Even if they were, your encounter with them may have scared them off, and that would be a good thing. The next 2 weeks were busy ones for Tom and Mr. Sharp, aided occasionally by Mr. Swift and with Garrett Jackson, the engineer, to lend a hand whenever needed. The aeronaut and the owner of the Speedy Arrow made considerable progress on their airship. So that's the aeronaut, Mr. Sharp, and the owner of the Speedy Arrow, that's Tom Swift, made considerable progress on their airship. What is your father so busy over? Asked Mr. Sharp one day when the new aluminium gas holder was about to be completed. I don't know, answered Tom with a somewhat puzzled air. He doesn't seem to want to talk about it, even to me. He says it will revolutionise travel along a certain line, but whether he's working on an airship that will rival ours or a new automobile, I can't make out. He'll tell us in good time, but when do you think we'll finish well, I don't know what to call it. I mean, our aeroplane? Oh, in about a month now. That's so, though. We haven't a name for it, but we'll christen it after it's completed. Now, if you'll tighten up some of those bolts, I'll get the gas-generating apparatus in readiness for another test. Gas. This one is gas. See, it says gas. A short description of the new airship may not be out of place now. It was built after plans Mr. Sharp had shown to Tom and his father soon after the thrilling rescue of the aeronaut from the blazing balloon over Lake Carlopa. The general idea of the airship was that of the familiar aeroplane, but in addition, I can see now why Goriki suggested I don't use airship as one of my keywords. We would all be sloshing by now. The general idea of the airship was that of the familiar aeroplane, but in addition to the sustaining surfaces of the planes, that's the foils of the wings, that shape, there was an aluminium cigar-shaped tank holding a new and very powerful gas, which would serve to keep the ship afloat even when not in motion. That makes it a lighter-than-air craft. Two sets of planes, one above the other, that's wings, we would call them, not planes, one above the other, like a biplane has, were used, bringing the airship into the biplane class. There were also two large propellers, one in front and the other at the rear. These were carefully made of different layers of wood built up as they are called to make them stronger. Actually, these days we call that laminating. We laminate the layers of wood together. And if you look at a wooden propeller, an old-fashioned wooden propeller that's of a certain era, that is how they are made. They are laminated wood. And it's really good because it overcomes the weaknesses that are in wood, having those layers of glue as well as the wood itself. Built up as they're called to make them stronger. They were 8 feet in diameter. That's 4 feet from centre to one side. Those are big propellers. And driven by a 20-cylinder air-cooled motor, whirled around at the rate of 1,500 revolutions a minute. 1,500 RPM, which isn't really a lot in an engine for a car, but is a lot for a propeller. When operated at full speed, the airship was capable of making 80 miles an hour against a moderate wind. Ooh. But if the use of the peculiarly shaped planes and the gas container with the secret but powerful vapour in it were something new in airship construction, so was the car in which the operator and travellers were to live during a voyage. The car, which on a traditional balloon is called a gondola. It's like a cabin that's slung underneath it.
Are we talking about dirigibles or hot air balloons?
We're actually talking about dirigibles.
I thought as much, otherwise it would be called a basket.
Yes, exactly. He was saying if it was a hot air balloon, it would be called basket, which is the sort that Mr. Sharp was in that caught fire over the lake that Tom Swift and his friends rescued him from. Yes, because they're generally made out of wicker or woven willow or something like that.
That sort of thing.
Woven. They're usually woven and fairly lightweight.
Woven sticks.
Woven sticks.
Because
fairly light but reasonably strong.
The weight down.
To keep the weight down.
Yeah. Sorry, interrupted.
That's right, thanks. Right, carrying on.
But yes, with the airships, it tends to be
a gondola.
referred to as a gondola.
Yeah, these days we call them a gondola.
Or sometimes cabin, as you said.
Thanks for the follow. I'll carry on because I get so distracted anyway, and I want to get through this. So something about new in airship construction. So was the car in which the operator and travellers were to live during a voyage. It was a complete living room with the engine and other apparatus, including that for generating the gas, in a separate compartment, and the whole was the combined work of Tom and Mr. Sharp. There were accommodations for 5 persons with sleeping berths, a small galley or kitchen where food could be prepared, and several easy chairs where the travellers could rest in comfort, while skimming along high in the air as fast as the fastest railroad train. There was room enough to carry stores for a voyage of a week or more, and enough gas could be manufactured aboard the ship, in addition to that taken in the aluminium case before starting, to sustain the ship for 2 weeks. The engine steering apparatus and the gas machine, and enough gas, that's 2, were within easy reach and control of the pilot, who was to be stationed in a small room in the bow, that's the front, of the ship. An electric stove served to warm the interior of the car and also provided means for cooking the food. The airship could be launched either by starting it along the ground on rubber-tired wheels, as is done in the case of the ordinary aeroplane, or it could be lifted by the gas, just as is done with a balloon. In short, there were many novel features about the ship. The gas test, which took place a few days later, showed that the young inventor and Mr. Sharp had made no mistake this time. No explosion followed, the needle valve controlling the powerful vapour perfectly. "Well," remarked Mr. Sharp one afternoon, "I think we shall put the ship together next week, Tom, and have a trial flight. We shall need a few more aluminium bolts, though, and if you don't mind, you might jump on your motorcycle and run to Mansburg for them. Merton's machine shop ought to have some." Mansburg was the nearest large city to Shopton, and Merton was a machinist who frequently did work for Mr. Swift. "All right," agreed Tom. "I'll start now. How many will you need?" "Oh, a couple of dozen." Tom started off, wheeling his cycle from the shed where he kept it. As he passed the building where the big frame of the airship with the planes and that's the wings, an aluminium bag had been assembled, he looked in. "We'll soon be flying through the clouds on your back," he remarked, speaking to the apparatus as if it could understand. "I guess we'll smash some records too, if that engine works as well when it's installed as it does now." Tom had purchased the bolts and was on his way back with them when, as he passed through one of the outlying streets of Mansburg, something went wrong with his motorcycle. He got off to adjust it, finding that it was only a trifling matter, which he soon put right, when he was aware of a man standing, observing him. Without looking up at the man's face, the young inventor was unpleasantly aware of a sharp scrutiny. He could hardly explain it, but it seemed as if the man had evil intentions toward him. And it was not altogether unexpected on Tom's part when, looking up, he saw staring at him Anson Morse, the leader of the gang of men who had caused such trouble to him. "Oh, it's you, is it?" asked Morse, an ugly scowl on his face. "I thought I recognised you." He moved nearer to Tom, who straightened up and stood, leaning on his wheel. "Yes, it's me," admitted the lad. Lad is this one. Lad for the lustre bottle. Finally got it. "I've been looking for you," went on Morse. "I'm not done with you yet, nor your father either." "Aren't you?" asked Tom, trying to speak coolly, although his heart was beating rather faster than usual. Morse had spoken in a threatening manner, and as the youth looked up and down the street, he saw that it was deserted, nor were there any houses near. "Excuse me. Sorry, suddenly an overwhelming itchy nose. Cannot avoid doing that, otherwise I'm likely to scream or start hitting something. It's just one of those things that happens. I'm sorry. Right. Looked up and down the street and he saw that it was deserted, nor were there any houses near. "No, I'm not," snapped the man. "You got me and my friends in a lot of trouble, and you didn't get half of what you deserved," burst out Tom. Nothing like riling up the bad guys, Tom? Getting yourself in trouble when you're in a place where nobody can step in and help you? And also, they got out, so it's not like they actually got a lot of time in prison. that they actually put up with. Tom was indignant at the thought of what he and his father had suffered at the hands of the gang. "You ought to be in jail now instead of out, and if I could see a policeman, I'd have you arrested for threatening me. That's against the law." Well, yeah, lawbreakers tend to break the law, don't they? "Huh, suppose you think you know lots about the law," sneered Morse. "Well, I tell you one thing, if you make any further trouble for me, I'll make all the trouble I can," said Tom, and he boldly faced the angry man. "I'm not afraid of you." "You'd better be," and Morse spoke in a vindictive manner. "We'll get even with you yet, Tom Swift. In fact, I've a good notion now to give you a good thrashing for what you done." Before Tom was aware of the man's intention, Morse had stepped quickly into the street where the lad stood beside his wheel and grasped him by the shoulder. He gave Tom a vicious shake. "I'm going to teach you a lesson. Shake, shake." "Take your hand off me," cried Tom, who was hampered by having to hold up his heavy machine. "I will when I've given you what I owe you," retorted the scoundrel. "I'm going to have satisfaction now if I never—" At that instant there came from down the street the sound of a rattling and bumping. Tom looked up quickly and saw approaching a rattle-trap of a wagon drawn by a big, loose-jointed mule, the large ears of which were flapping to and fro. The animal was advancing rapidly in response to blows and words from the driver, and before the uplifted fist of Morse could fall on Tom's head, the outfit was opposite them. "Hold on there, mister! Hold on!" cried the man in the wagon. "What are you doing to my friend, Mr. Swift?" "None of your business," snapped Morse. "You drive on and let me manage this affair if you don't want trouble. Who are you anyhow?" "Why don't you know me?" "Why, don't you know me?" asked the man, at whom Tom looked gratefully. "I's Eradicate Sampson, and this here my mule Boomerang. Whoa, Boomerang, I reckon you and I better take a hand in this here argument." "Not unless you want trouble," cried Morse. "I don't mind trouble, not in the leastest," answered Eradicate cheerfully. "Me and Boomerang has had lots of trouble. We's used to it. No, Mr. Man, you better let go of my friend Mr. Swift if you don't want trouble your own self." "Drive on or mind your own business," cried Morse, now unreasonably angry. "This is my affair," and he gave Tom a shake. Our hero was not going to submit tamely, however. He had one hand free and raised to strike Morse, but the latter, letting go his hold on the lad's shoulder, grasped with that hand the fist which the young inventor had raised. "Let's hope that he stands slightly closer to the bike, and then Tom steps away and the bike lands on the guy." "Yes, Coleslaw, I agree entirely. If you hear someone's name is Eradicate, I recommend listening." "Definitely." Oh, my nose is so itchy today. I don't know why. And it goes in phases. Sometimes it'll be fine and then it'll suddenly get itchy again. We'll carry on. Letting go his hold on the lad's shoulder, grasped with that hand the fist which the young inventor had raised. Then with his other hand, the scoundrel was about to hit Tom. "Break away from him! Break away from him, Mr. Swift," directed the coloured man, the Eradicate. "You come fight him, then." "I guess he'll have his own troubles doing that," sneered Morse. "Not if I help him," answered Eradicate promptly as he climbed back off the seat into the body of his ramshackle vehicle. "Don't you interfere with me," stormed the man. An instant later, Tom broke away from his tormentor and laid his motorcycle on the ground in order to have both hands free for the attack he felt would follow. "Ha! You think you're going to escape, do you?" cried Morse as he started toward Tom, his eyes blazing. "I'll show you who you're dealing with." Yes, and I reckon I'll show you something you ain't looking for," suddenly cried Eradicate. With a quick motion, he picked up a pail of whitewash. from his wagon and with sure aim emptied the contents of the bucket over Morse, who was rushing at Tom. The white fluid spread over the man from head to foot, enveloping him as in a white shroud, and his advance was instantly checked. "Dah, I reckon that's the quickest whitewashing job I done in some time," chuckled Eradicate as he grasped his long-handled brush and clambered down from the wagon, ready for a renewal of the hostilities on the part of Morse. "The bestest whitewashing job I done in some time, yes, sir." And that's the end of the chapter. It's excellent. I love it. Oh, dear. Oh, dear. Oh, why is my nose so itchy? I don't think, it doesn't feel like I've got a bit of cat fur on it, and yet the tickle seems a little bit like that. I don't know why. It's just sometimes you things do that. Anyway, we'll see. We'll carry on. Chapter 4, A Trial Trip. There was no fear that Anson Morse would return the attack, blinded by the whitewash which ran in his eyes, but which, being slaked, did not burn him. Thankfully, so we're not going to get in trouble for assault and damage to a person, because we don't need Eradicate to get into trouble. I had something going on over here. Right. Yeah, it would be not good for Eradicate to get into trouble. So it's quite funny. I was wondering about that. If it was going to be the sort of whitewash that was going to be aggressive to the skin or not. And apparently not. Blinded by the whitewash which ran in his eyes, but which being slaked did not burn him. So what happens is when you make whitewash, you can use slaked lime or you can use burnt lime. So burnt lime seeks moisture. And that's why it's used in some forms of making cement, because by seeking moisture, by wanting moisture to be part of it, it draws moisture in and then it has a chemical reaction which heats up and then it goes hard. Slaked lime, on the other hand, you can mix moisture with and it will slowly dry out, but it doesn't have the same level of chemical reaction which causes a burning effect, as well as whether or not it's acid or alkali going on. There's a whole lot of stuff that goes on with all of that sort of thing. It's lots of chemistry. So you can look that sort of thing up if you want, but it's slaked lime, which means it's not going to be a problem. People used to actually create their own whitewash. You'd dig out some limestone, crush it, burn it, and then you have a water reaction with it, which means it's slaked. You know, like your thirst has been slaked. You are no longer thirsty because you have actually had a drink of water to slake your thirst. So slaked lime is lime that has already had that water application to it, so it's no longer going to have that problem with it. So I'm not sure if they crush it before or after they get to that stage, but people used to make their own, or they would get it from the powder for whitewash from the hardware, and you could get different versions of it. So there you go. Being slaked did not burn him. He groped blindly about, pawing the air with his outstretched hands. You wait, you'll suffer for this," he spluttered as soon as he could free his mouth from the trickling fluid. Then, wiping it from his face with his hands as best he could, he shook his fist at Tom. "I'll pay you and that black rascal back," he cried. "You wait." "I hopes you pays me soon," answered Eradicate, "'cause that's a case as how that whitewash worth 25 cents and I got to go get more to finish doing a chicken coop I'm working on. Whoa da Boomerang, there ain't gonna be no more trouble, I reckon." Morse did not reply. He'd been most unexpectedly repulsed, and with the whitewash dripping from his garments, he turned and fairly ran toward a strip of woodland that bordered the highway at that place. Tom approached the coloured man and held out a welcoming hand. "I don't know what I'd have done if you hadn't come along, Rad," the lad said, because Rad is the nickname that he uses for him. "That fellow was desperate, and this is a lonely spot to be attacked. Your whitewash came in mighty handy. You could give him 25 cents to get some more." "Yes, sir, Mr. Swift, that's what it done. I knowed I could use it on him, and if he got too obstreperous, and that's what he done. But I were going to fight him with my brush, and if he'd made any more trouble—" "Oh, I fancy we've seen the last of him for some time," said Tom, but he looked worried. It was evident that the Happy Harry gang was still hanging around in the neighbourhood of Shopton, and the fact that Morse was bold enough to attack our hero in broad daylight argued that he felt little fear of the authorities. Only because they don't know he's there as an escaped convict. "If you wants to catch him, Master Swift," went on Eradicate, "you can trace him by the whitewash what drops off on him," and he pointed to a trail of white drops which showed the path Morse had taken. "No, the less I have to do with him, the better, I reckon. The better I like it," answered the lad. "But I can't thank you enough, Rad. You've helped me out of difficulties several times now. You've put me on the trail of the men in the deserted mansion. You warned me of the log Andy Foger placed across the road, and now you've saved me from Morse." "Oh, that's nothing, Master Swift. You has sure done lots for me. Sides, my mule Boomerang am entitled to the most credit this time, yeah. I were coming down the street on my way to a whitewashing job when I see you and yo lickety-split machine," for so Eradicate designated a motorcycle. "I knowed it were yo, and I didn't like the looks of that man. Then I see he had hold of you, and I thought he was a burglar, so I yelled to Boomerang to hurry up. Now, mostly when I wants Boomerang to hurry, he goes slow. And when I wants him to go slow, he runs away. But this time here, he knowed he were coming to help you, and he certainly did leg it. Well, that's what he done. He run like he was going home to stable full of oats, and that's how I got here so quick. Then I thought it a whitewash, and I just used it." "It was the most effective weapon I could have used," said Tom gratefully. "'Deed no, Mr. Swift, I didn't have no weapon," spoke Eradicate earnestly. "I ain't even got my razor, 'cause I left it at home. I didn't have no weapon at all. I just used a whitewash like you seen me." "That's what I meant," answered Tom, trying not to laugh at the man's misunderstanding. "I'm ever so much obliged to you just the same, and here's $50 to pay for the whitewash." "Oh, no, Master Swift, I don't want to take it. I can make more whitewash." "I can make more whitewash?" But Tom insisted and picked up his machine to sprint for home. Eradicate started to tell over again how he urged Boomerang on, but the lad had no time to listen. "But I didn't have no weapon, Master Swift. No, indeedy, none at all, not even my razor," repeated Eradicate. "Only the pail of whitewash, that is, less'n you calls my brush a weapon." "Less you call my brush a weapon." "Well, it's sort of one," admitted Tom with a laugh as he started his machine. Come around next week, Rad. We'll have some dirt eradicating for you to attend to, because he does all sorts of odd jobs." "Indeed I will, Master Swift. Eradicate is my name, and I eradicates the dirt. But that man such did look odd with that pail of whitewash all over him. He sure looked the most extraordinary. Giddy up, Boomerang. See if you can break some more speed records now." But the mule appeared to be satisfied with what he'd done, and as he rode off, Tom looked back to see the man labouring to get the sleepy animals started. The lad did not tell his father of the adventure with Morse, but he related the occurrence to Mr. Sharp. "I'd like to get hold of that scoundrel and the others in the gang," exclaimed the balloonist. "I'd take him up in the airship and drop him down into the lake. He's a bad man. So are the others. Wonder what they want around here." "That's what's puzzling me," admitted Tom. "I hope Dad doesn't hear about them, or he'll be sure to worry, and maybe it will interfere with his new ideas. He hasn't told you yet what he's engaged in inventing, has he?" "No, and I don't like to ask him. He said the other day, though, that it would rival our airship, but in a different way. I wonder what he meant." "It's hard to say, but I don't believe he can invent anything that will go ahead of our craft, even if he is my own father, and the best one in the world," said Tom jokingly. Well, I got the bolts. Now let's get to work. I'm anxious for a trial trip. No more than I am. I want to see if my ideas will work out in practice as well as they do in theory. For a week or more, Tom and Mr. Sharp laboured on the airship, with Mr. Jackson to help them. The motor, with its 20 cylinders, was installed, and the big aluminium holder fastened to the frame of the planes. The rudders, one to control the elevation and depression of the craft, so up or down, and the other to direct its flight to the right or left, were attached, and the steering wheel, as well as the levers regulating the motor, were put in place. The rudders and ailerons, I think they're called. Rudder is for left, right, and ailerons are for up, down. About all that remains to be done now, said the aeronaut one night. Oh, the Graf is depressed. Yeah, I know. Poor Graf. Said the aeronaut one night as he and Tom stood in the big shed looking at their creation. Oh, I'm so sorry. I'm so sorry. You need to write less words for your comments. But you can have another go. Do write something. It's really good when people do write something in chat, because then we know you're real people instead of bots, and then we don't ban you. Because we do get quite active about banning bots around here. So have another go. It'll only time you out for 30 seconds, but just write shorter bits. Okay? That's cool when you do get to. About all that remains to be done now, said the aeronaut one night as he and Tom stood in the big shed looking at their creation, is to fit up the car, that's the gondola, and paint the machine. Can't we make a trial trip before we fit up the car ready for a long flight? Asked the young inventor. Yes, but I wouldn't like to go out without painting the ship. Some parts of it might rust if we get into the moist, cloudy upper regions. If it's raw aluminium, it won't rust the way steel does, but it will still corrode. Yeah, that's right. Well, it was about the materials of the baskets on hot air balloons still being the same. Yeah, cool. No worries. Sometimes it's easier just to write part of it, send that, and then write the rest of what you're writing. It took 2 days to paint the machine, for much care had to be used, and when it was finished, Tom looked admiringly up at it. We ought to name it, suggested Mr. Sharp as he removed a bit of paint from the end of his nose, from the end of the nose, must be the nose of the ship. To be sure, agreed Tom, and hold on, I have the very name for it. Red Cloud. Red Cloud? Questioned Mr. Sharp. Yes, exclaimed Tom with enthusiasm. It's painted red, at least the big aluminium gas container is, and we hope to go above the clouds in it. Why not Red Cloud? Too bad there wasn't a character counter on chat, I have to guess. Yeah, I'm sorry about that. There is actually a couple of websites where you can check how many characters you've got. Just do a web search for it, character counter. But yes, it would be really cool if there was something like that in chat, like a lot of the short format social media platforms have. Usually for the first part of what you're writing, it doesn't show how many characters you've got, but as you get closer to the end of that, like when you get over half of the value of it, they'll start giving you a countdown as to where you're going to get to the end of how many characters you've got left that you can use. And that would be really cool if they had it on Twitch, if we could set one up. But unfortunately they don't, because it's the character count is not actually something that everybody uses, the character limitation. Anyway, we'll carry on. Why not Red Cloud? That's what it shall be, conceded the balloonist. If I had a bottle of malted milk or something like that, I'd christen it. Malted milk? I don't know. Yeah, that's excellent. Good points, guys. Keep talking. We ought to have a young lady to do it, suggested Tom. They always have young ladies to name ships. Were you thinking of any particular young lady? Asked Mr. Sharp softly, and Tom blushed as he replied, Oh, no, of course, that is, well, oh, hang it. Christen it yourself and let me alone, he finished. He's embarrassed about the fact that he likes a girl. Well, in the absence of Miss Mary Nestor, who I think would be the best for the ceremony, said Mr. Sharp with a twinkle in his eyes. I christen thee Red Cloud. And with that he sprinkled some water on the pointed nose of the red aluminium gas bag, for the aeronaut and Tom were on a high staging on a level with the upper part of the airship. Red Cloud it is, cried Tom enthusiastically. Now, tomorrow we'll see what it can do. The day of the test proved all that could be desired in the way of weather. The fact that an airship was being constructed in the Swift shops had been kept as secret as possible. But of course many in Shopton knew of it, for Andy Foger had spread the tidings. I hope we won't have a crowd around to see us go up, said Tom as he and Mr. Sharp went to the shed to get the Red Cloud in readiness for the trial. I shouldn't want to have them laugh at us if we fail to rise. Oh, yes. Oh, that would be terrible, especially because it sounds like they're using hydrogen, I think. I can't remember. They did say what they were using. It shouldn't be hydrogen because that's the dangerous one. I shouldn't want them to laugh at us if we fail to rise. Don't worry, we'll go up all right, declared Mr. Sharp. The only thing I'm at all worried about is our speed. I want to go fast, but we may not be able to until our motor gets tuned up. But we'll rise. Remind me to explain about that last comment. The gas machine had already been started and the vapour was hissing inside the big aluminium holder. It was decided to try to go up under the lifting power of the gas and not use the aeroplane feature for sending aloft the ship, as there was hardly room around the workshops, for a good start. When enough of the vapour had been generated to make the airship buoyant, the big doors of the shed were opened. Tom and Mr. Sharp, with the aid of Garrett and Mr. Swift, shoved it slowly out. There it is! There she comes! Cried several voices outside the high fence that surrounded the Swift property. So it must be a pretty big shed. They're going up! Andy Foger's in that bunch, remarked Tom with a grim smile. I hope we don't fail. We won't, don't worry, advised Mr. Sharp. The shouts outside the fence increased. It was evident that quite a crowd of boys as well as men had collected, although it was early in the morning. Somehow news of the test had leaked out. The ship continued to get lighter and lighter as more gas was generated. It was held down by ropes, fastened to stakes driven in the ground. Mr. Sharp entered the big car that was suspended below the aeroplanes. That's the wings, remember, below the wings. Come on, Tom, the aeronaut called. We're almost ready to fly. Will you come too, Mr. Swift and Garrett? Some other time, promised the aged inventor. It looks as though you're going to succeed, though. I'll wait, however, until after the test before I venture. How about you, Garrett? Asked Tom of the engineer as the young inventor climbed into the car. The ground is good enough for me, was the answer with a smile. Broken bones don't mend so easily when you're past 65. But we're not going to fall, declared Mr. Sharp. All ready, Tom? Cast off. Here we go. The restraining ropes were quickly cast aside, slowly at first, then with a rush, as though feeling more and more sure of herself. The Red Cloud rose in the air like a gigantic bird of scarlet plumage. Up and up it went, higher than the house, higher than the big shed where it had been built, higher, higher, higher. There she is, cried the shrill voices of the boys in the meadow, and the hoarser tones of the men mingled with them. Hurrah! Called Tom softly to the balloonist. We're off! And he waved his hand to his father and Garrett. I told you so, said Mr. Sharp confidently. I'm going to start the propellers in a minute. Oh, dear me, goodness sakes alive, cried Mrs. Baggert, the housekeeper, running from the house and wringing her hands. I'm sure they'll fall. She looked up apprehensively, but Tom only waved his hand to her and threw her a kiss. Clearly he had no fears, although it was the first time he'd ever been in an airship. Mr. Sharp was as calm and collected as an ocean captain making his 100th trip across the Atlantic. Throw on the main switch, he called to our hero, and Tom, moving to amidships in the car, that means in the middle, did as directed. Mr. Sharp pulled several levers, adjusted some valves, and then with a rattle and a bang, the huge 20-cylinder motor started. Waiting a moment to see that it was running smoothly, Mr. Sharp grasped the steering wheel. Then with a quick motion he threw the two propellers in gear. They began to whirl around rapidly. Oh, motor, yes, very good. Motor. Motor was
This one, I think. Yeah, motor. Very good. I'll read the notes in a minute. Sorry. They began to whirl around rapidly. Here we go, cried Tom, and sure enough, the red cloud, now 500 feet in the air, shot forward like a boat on the water, only with such a smooth, gliding, easy motion that it seemed like being borne along on a cloud. She works! She works! Cried the balloonist. Now to try out our elevation rudder. And as the red cloud gathered speed, he tilted the small planes, which sent the craft up or down according to the manner in which they were tilted. So not the main wings, but the little flaps. The flaps, that's the ones. The next instant, the airship was pointed at an angle toward the clouds and shooting along at swift speed, while from down below came the admiring cheers of the boys and men. And that's the end of the chapter. Oh my goodness, bang on 3 o'clock. So I'm not going to read the next chapter because I only read until 3 o'clock. But I will tell you, it's called Chapter 5, Colliding with a Tower. Not really such a good thing. That does not sound like a good adventure, does it? But we will have that next time. Unless, of course, there's some reason why my normal next time is delayed a little. So let's have a look at these comments. There's an upper limit for chat content as it is, but if a streamer sets a lower limit, yes, that's correct. Goriki was saying, wouldn't be rocket science to put a minus 500 next to the channel points and it counts down as you type, 500 being the max. That actually is a really sensible idea, and then having it, if a streamer sets a lower limit, then that is reflected in that number. It would be so easy. They'd cut off at that. Can you imagine the tragedy if someone smashed a bottle on an aircraft and that caused... Oh, yes, back in the day. Hydrogen was the first one they used. Helium came later. They moved to helium because it was inert. The problem with it is that helium is a limited resource, whereas hydrogen, just generate it from water. Hydrogen, the danger is that the hydrogen wants to be with oxygen to get into a stable form again. And so it explodes. That's what happened with the Hindenburg. There was enough of damage, explosion happened, people died. And it's because of the Hindenburg that they actually moved away from using hydrogen for lighter than air craft. But it is actually far more effective as a lifting chemical because... as a lifting chemical, it is lighter, a lot lighter than helium. If you know why are my captions not working? Let's turn them off and turn them on again. Let's see if that's going to work now. Hydrogen, if you look at your atomic numbers and the weights associated with them, there's helium is twice as heavy as hydrogen. That means hydrogen has twice the lifting power of it. One of those things that you learn at school. Anyway, but because it wants to settle down and be comfortable and stable, it tries to join with oxygen, which is much more common than any of the other things it can join with. And that is what creates the explosion, which is dangerous, very dangerous. Do I ever peruse the offerings on Royal Road? No, I haven't, because I only ever read publicly, and therefore everything I read is public domain or I have express permission to do so. So just a wee tip for anyone who is reading on a public platform such as Twitch, YouTube, any of the other streaming services, or if you're recording it and putting it online, make sure that you are reading public domain or you have express written permission to do so from the publishers or the author, or it's your own work, in which case you have given yourself express permission. Because just like you get DMCAs for, DMCA takedowns on Twitch for using copywritten music, it's some of the publishers in the writing world are really vicious. And they will go for the smaller people first because the smaller people are more likely to throw the towel in and comply, and then the news will get round. Whereas the big bigger people are less likely, are more likely to put up an expensive fight first before having to comply. So really not a good idea to do something that is illegal. And also it's against Twitch terms of service and liable to get you deplatformed, so that they actually don't let you ever back on the platform again, even to watch. So yeah, I wonder if they'll hit a tower. Says Coleslaw. Funny that, I wonder. Maybe it's the name of a song. Oh no, you've gone and done it again. Oh no, Sean, you've gone and timed yourself out again and you've lost your words. But that's all right. Yeah. I do sometimes read in my own time, but I actually find that I have such a hard time concentrating these days because I have ADHD combined with autism and a whole bunch of other stuff. And these days I can't concentrate on stuff happening inside my head for long enough to really get buried in a story to enjoy it. But it also depends on the type. Sometimes I can, but nowhere near. I used to read all the time. I used to read at school when I was in class. I used to read under the covers at night and all that sort of thing, which is how I got into doing this sort of stuff. It's just because of my love of reading. It's just one of those things that... Greetings from Washington State. Lovely. You're welcome to let me know what username you use there. It's not actually a service I've used before, Royal Road, so I can find out a bit more about it. But it depends on the nature of the sort of things that you write too. But there are people around. It would be just keep sharing on various social media platforms and connect with people who are interested in the sort of stuff that's the same sort of genre that you do. Anyway, I love reading kids' books because I don't have to analyse too deeply. Calversion is your best work. Oh, that's cool. Thanks. That's worth knowing. So one of the reasons I like kids' books is I don't have to dig for deeper meaning or parallel meaning, or they're saying this, but in actual fact, there's a whole lot of other deeper inferences going on. I know a lot of people like that sort of stuff, but I don't like the weight of expectation too much. And so therefore I don't do so well with things that require deep concentration. Even if I do really enjoy it, I do a lot better with things like movies and TV these days. But even those, I usually get partway through a series, and even if I'm loving it, I just sort of like, I have to concentrate too hard. Example, I watch a lot of videos on YouTube, like people explaining stuff like science ones or true crime and all that sort of stuff, but everything I watch on there, I watch at 1.5 speed, just because otherwise I can't keep my brain focused, and I will usually be playing a cozy game at the same time. But on top of that, I don't go anywhere near anything with horror, shock, deep gore, any of that sort of stuff, just because my brain. So yeah. Anyway, so there you go, folks. We are back into a new book, Tom Swift. And so far, he's not been quite as much of an idiot as he has been in our very first Tom Swift book, Tom Swift and His Motorcycle. Mind you, we did find in his Tom Swift and His Motorboat that he wasn't quite as dense as he was in the first one, thankfully. So I look forward to seeing you guys all again. What is today? Today is Friday, so it's 3 days until my next reading session. And if you're wondering when, and I'm typing in the command to give you the link, which you can see here, but it's also in chat, so you can click on it, just because we do have some of our number who sometimes the instructions on how to find things like that are a little bit hard to find because they are intensely ADHD and they get lost along the way. So there you go. Yeah, most people who are here listening, it is a day behind me because I'm in New Zealand, hence the accent. So it'll be Sunday night for most people. But lovely to have you all here. Great to make new friends as well. Thank you so much. I do have a Discord server. What we don't tend to put the information out in public. You may find a link to it somewhere if you search for me online. But usually it's in places where you don't get lots of drive-by scammers and spammers finding it. Just because we have had incidents of people having joining the Discord server so that they can harvest my community for spamming them. And I don't think that's appropriate. So that's why we don't have it as an auto timer or a command where you can get the Discord link. But yeah, if you're into reading,